because we know that your health matters. On KBN TV, we bring you Healthy Living, a program that seeks to highlight various health conditions with the aim of providing solutions. So we bring you an array of doctors that are going to help us talk about some of the various challenges that we may be faced with health-wise. Is it malaria? Is it high blood pressure? Is it kidney failure or any other disease that you might not have answers to? Join me every Wednesday at 20 hours as I bring you Healthy Living only on KBN TV, the finest television. Good evening to you all and welcome to Healthy Living with me, Rachel Mumba. It is yet another beautiful Wednesday evening. I would like to sincerely apologize for coming on late. This was as a result of a technical glitch that we had. However, the program continues. Today, I have the honor of being joined by Henry Mwanza. Henry Mwanza is coming from the Mulenga Autism Foundation, and together we're going to be talking about mental health with a particular with a subtopic called depression. I know that we all get depressed sometimes, and then let me just get back to the introduction of what depression is. Everybody of us has been depressed one time or the other. Everybody of us knows somebody that has been depressed or is depressed, and so it's very, very important that we tackle this problem, because we know that mental health and depression, to be specific, has become a problem of concern in our society. Many people are going through depression without knowing what to do, where to go, and where to get the answers. And so Henry Mwanza is here to help us tonight, just to be able to talk about this very, very important topic. Henry, good evening and welcome to Healthy Living.
Good evening, viewers, and good evening, Rachel. It's nice to join you virtually this evening.
Yes, absolutely. Very, very a wonderful evening to you, Henry. I know that this must have been a very, very busy day for you, but thank you so much for coming through virtually so we can raise awareness in this very, very important subject. Mental health is something that we can no longer ignore. It's not. It's something that we can no longer keep quiet over, because we've seen so many people suffer silently without getting solutions, and yet there could be solutions out there. And so I'll just go straight and give the introduction. Depression is a serious condition that negatively affects how a person thinks, feels, and behaves. In contrast to normal sadness, clinical depression is persistent. Persistent often interferes with the person's ability to experience or anticipate pleasure, and significantly interferes with functioning in daily life. So this is a very, very serious problem, Henry, and I know that this is your area of expertise. And so we just get straight into it and, get to the causes, really. What causes depression?
Okay, so particularly, I think it's important to make mention to say that in life we experience different range of emotions, and these emotions are as a result of the different situations and life circumstances that we face. And if we look at depression, depression is actually a disturbance in our emotional experiences. So there are quite a number of things that would make a person uh, experience depression or sort of have depression. And one of them that we can look at is the factor that has to do with life situations. So when we talk about life situations, uh, here we can talk about one, having a chronic condition. Let's say you are sick, you've been diagnosed with HIV and AIDS, that can send you into depression. You've got cancer, that can send you into depression. You know, you fail an examination as a young person, that would send you into depression. If you happen not to get employment, that would send you into depression. If your loved one or your spouse, or you're in a relationship and you get disappointed, that can also send you into depression. So, in general, what we're saying is it's the different everyday life situations that can actually be the source or the cause of our depression, because it really does come from the emotional experiences of everyday life situations. If you lose a job today, you're not definitely looking at the future and where you're coming from, the plans that you had for your future, they won't be there. So that in itself would actually make you get into that state of just feeling depressed and experiencing different kind of emotions. So I think those are some of the things that would actually make one to experience depression.
All right, thank you so much. I know that then this means that depression is something that everyone risks having, because we are all prone to experiencing life situation. And sometimes some of these are unforeseen, some of these life situations are very unpredictable. You cannot plan them, they just come. And so very, very important that even as these life situations happen, we have to be extremely careful how we respond. And so now, secondly, what are the signs and symptoms of depression? How can you tell that somebody, or you yourself as an individual, is falling into depression?
Okay, thanks. So I think the bottom line of it is that we said in the starting or the beginning, we say it's an emotional disturbance. An emotional disturbance that is going to affect your everyday life. So some of the things that would be a tell sign to say you're getting into that stage of depression is you would have low interest in the things that you do on a daily basis. Okay, for instance, there are those of us that maybe go for work. Okay, and maybe the most exciting part of your day is you would always get up early at maybe 6 in the morning to get ready for work. But when you begin to see the tell signs of depression is when even just getting out of bed becomes very difficult for you to go to work. You know, you used to get up at 6, and all of a sudden you want to get up at 8 because you don't feel like you can go for work. There's nothing interesting about the day that you're looking forward to. So that's one of the things that you have to look out for. Two, there's also an element of uh, others, they might experience less of sleep. You have struggled to sleep. You want to sleep, but you cannot sleep. Or you end up sleeping too much. You know, you don't want to do anything outside, maybe going to just do your own basic chores in the house, maybe cooking or making yourself a cup of tea. You just feel like the only comfort that you can get is just to sleep. So that constant sleeping without even being productive at any point, then that's also a tell sign to say there could be something that is troubling your mind. Others as well, you might not have the energy, just like I've said, maybe the energy to get out of bed, to start your day with a cup of tea or to just cook something. So you don't have that energy. You're constantly feeling like you're tired. You can sleep for 4 or 5 hours, but you still feel like I am just too tired. What is making you tired? There's nothing really that you are doing physically to get tired. So that's the fatigue that you would also experience. And then there are also thoughts or feelings about being worthless, being useless. You get to feel like, I'm just so useless. How did I get here? You get to begin to experience a bit of a self guilt. You blame yourself for situations maybe that are even out of your control. So those are moments when we get into that space of just making feel like there's no one else who cares about you. You're not worth a person, and so those are some of the things. And also, it's important to say that even the lack of concentration, sometimes you could actually be doing things that you enjoy, but you don't have that level of concentration. Your mind just is not there. You're lost in thoughts. You are just drifting. You can't focus, and those are some of the things that would be the tell signs of saying there could be something that is wrong. And when we talk about these signs, I think we're not talking about these experiences maybe on a 1 day basis, but we are talking about them. Usually, would say if you are experiencing such for a period of about 2 to 3 weeks, then definitely you need to get help. Okay, a day is okay, but when it persists for more than 5 days, it gets to 10 days, it gets to 21 days, that becomes a serious concern and you might need to find some help.
Right. Thank you so much, Henry. And I know that a lot of us that are watching, a lot of us that are sitting down, can be able to relate that there are moments when you feel like you don't want to get up anymore. There are moments when you feel like you just want to stay in bed. A lot of us, the best of us has experienced these things. But I'm so glad that you actually highlighted the fact that, if these feelings, of self-guilt, of, tiredness, of not wanting to get out of bed, of, feeling worthless persist, and it means that you need that's a telltale sign that you might be falling into a depressive state. And so now, how is depression diagnosed? How does one get to a point where even clinically or medically, they can conclusively say that this person is depressed?
Okay, so unlike most medical conditions that you would have, where you can easily do a taste, a blood test or saliva or something like that, the depression is based on self-reports. So self-reports being that you as a person would have to say some of the things that you've been experiencing, and also it also based on reported, you would say reported speech, meaning that the people that are around you would have to ask them, so what is it that this person has been doing? So maybe they would tell us, this person enjoyed drawing, but then for the past 3 weeks, this person has just been locking themselves in their room without going anywhere, talking to anyone, and things like that. So the diagnosis is based on the things that we hear, and particularly we pay attention to the things that we've highlighted, such as your daily activities, your mood swings, the way they have changed, and how your life in general has been. While it's based on reported speech, there are some basic, what we would call some basic screening we do. So we'll ask you a couple of questions and then just tick off, and those would give us an average. From there, we would say, where do you fall? Are you within the mild, the severe, the moderate? So that's how we get to diagnose depression.
All right, all right. Thank you so much. And in this regard, now, how then does one treat or manage depression? Because I know that unlike the conventional, if I were to say so, unlike the every other sickness where you actually give somebody medication and so on and so forth, how do you then manage, or I think manage is a better word for depression in this regard. How then can you manage depression or completely take somebody out of that depressive state?
Okay, so while we say that depression cannot be tested clinically, in the sense that you get to do some test on the tissues of your body, uh, when it comes to management, I think there are about three elements of management of depression that are important to take note of. Number one is something that we call therapy, which is psychotherapy. So psychotherapy is just an element of getting to talk to the person, and within the talking space, or what most people would know as counseling. Okay, so there's counseling, but in this case, we call it psychotherapy. So psychotherapy is whereby now we get to sit down with the person and look at the things or the factors that are taking place in the life of this individual, and what is it that really is getting them to be in that depressed state. Maybe just to give an example for an ordinary person out there, two people that are in a relationship. Okay, two people that are in a relationship and they are bound to or yet to get married maybe in a few weeks or so, and one of them just decides to just step out of the relationship and say, no, I cannot do this. And the other one maybe falls into depression, okay, because of that anticipated to say, he was supposed to marry me or she was supposed to marry me, but this is what has happened. So when we get to therapy, what we are going to deal with is to look at this situation that has been presented before this person. What is it that we need to look at? So we need to look at, help this person to look at the whole situation in a different dimension, using therapy. So it's to change the thinking. Maybe the person might be thinking, since I got it because ujananisia last minute, or I'm just not beautiful. So we begin to change that thought pattern in therapy for this person to also see that actually beyond this person uh, who left you waiting on them, you can actually also be able to find another person. And in order to find another person, you need to put yourself in a good space. You need to look after yourself. You need to go out there and meet other people. So those are things that we'll deal with in therapy to equip this person to say, in this world, there might be people that will leave you, and there might be people that will stay with you. And that's just the way life is. But how do you deal with this in a positive way that it doesn't affect your everyday life, or it doesn't get you to be in that space where it feels very dark? So that we deal with in therapy. So that those are some of the things that we deal with in therapy. If there are some certain skills that the person needs to learn about decision making, how can I make a better decision, or how can I actually avoid stressing? So we'll deal with that in therapy by helping this person to get those skills. The other way of treating or managing depression, of course, has to do with medication. So, like I mentioned earlier, depression comes with low moods or it's an emotional imbalance. So when we give medication, what we're trying to do is to sort of elevate the mood or regulate how the mood and certain body chemicals react. So this is in actual sense trying to help the person to move from a low state to a bit of an elevated or average uh, mood. So there are things that we call antidepressants. So these are sort of medications that would help to elevate the mood or switch up the mood. So on their own, they are really not. We cannot use them on their own, but we have to use also together with the therapy aspect of it because we want the person to get to get to that level where they're able to manage their own life in a more positive manner. And one of the third elements that is important as well in the management of depression and most mental health condition is using the support system. So when we talk about the support system, we're just talking about individuals or family members that are there present for this person. These are also important in managing depression because sometimes this is where the environment is actually the one that is making this person get into a depressed state. So maybe we might need to change the environment or change the thinking of the people within that environment so that even the episodes or the depressive episodes would reduce. So the support system becomes very important as well in managing depression. So those are some of the three major elements that I would point to that are cardinal in managing depression.
Right. Thank you so much, Henry. Thank you for, explaining in detail. And I know that a lot of us can relate. Very, very important in terms of managing. And I'm sure as we are talking, people out there are able to tell whether they're depressed or not. And I'm sure some of the answers that we need for this problem are now coming. And so I know that depression is common in both men and women, but we see that it's much more prevalent with the women. Why is that, Henry? Would you elaborate on that a little?
Okay, very, very interesting. So first and foremost, yes, it's present in both men and women. And this is also to, it's important to say that in our context, in the Zambian context, we don't have statistics that sort of, or research that speaks to it being more prevalent in women than in men. But some of the factors that maybe have been found around the world of pertaining to why depression is more prevalent in women compared to men is that, first of all, there are things to do with the hormones. I think that's number one. So as we know, women on a monthly basis, they have that hormonal change within their bodies. They have those fluctuating hormones in terms of what is produced. And so that's one of the predisposing factors that makes it more likely in women. So it's because of that change in the reproductive system, and that brings about certain changes in the hormone levels and also the levels that are important emotional management or mood swings. So that's one of the elements. Two, one of the things that science points to is also women are more, what we can say, they are more relationship seeking compared to men. So when we talk about relationship, we're talking about the interpersonal relationship where women will find comfort in talking to someone, expressing themselves. But most men, I think that's something that we don't really like opening up the space for emotions, and most of the time we find that ours is more external. It's goal oriented. It's about getting one or two things done and things like that. Not really paying attention to how you feel as a person and things like that. So even the way that we deal with depression, I think it's also from that you get to see that most women will be prone to depression not because of any genetic makeup, but also because of the way they relate with situations. They would talk to someone, they would, vent out. For men, they would do things that are more external, and in some cases, that's why it's been found that Other people like men would find that they become very aggressive, but that aggression is from the depression. So those are some of the things that science has established, but there's no conclusive finding that says by the makeup of a woman and by the makeup of a man, then there's that difference. No, there's nothing, I think, so far.
Okay.
But it's just those kind of issues that have been attached to.
All right, thank you, Henry. Thank you so much. I know that depression can be associated to a lot of other complications, and I know that one of them, and I'm sure you, being a mental health practitioner, has come face to face with this situation. That depression has actually led to a lot of suicide and suicidal tendencies. What other complications can be associated with depression?
Okay, so suicide, yes, suicide is one of the things that can be associated with depression. With a lot of people that tend to be depressed are most likely to commit suicide. That's one of them. Second to that, also, I think in our context, we have substance abuse. So substance abuse includes alcohol, marijuana, mention it. So all these things also can stem from depression because as people are trying to get intoxicated or get high on weed, what they're actually trying to mask up is that emotional emptiness that they are feeling. They're looking for something to fill it up. So that's the other thing that we get to see, especially amongst young people in our context. It's very high. The other thing that we also get to see is uh, risky behaviors. I think people that are depressed sometimes can actually engage in several risky behaviors. And when we talk about these risky behaviors, it could be crime, it could be dangerous driving, it could be, sexual, just that sexual exploitation where you just get to be so careless with yourself and you indulge in so many sexual activities, you know, not because that's what you want, but because you're trying to close up the gap within yourself. So those are, I think, three things that we can talk about that are highly associated with depression, which has to do with suicide, and we can also relate with substance abuse in our context. We can relate to risky behaviors. This could include crime and also could also include aspects of sex. Then also there are also people that would be in the tendency of harming themselves. So harming themselves would be, you cut yourself eh, to the point where blood comes out. But you are not trying to kill yourself, you're just cutting yourself, or maybe you end up punching the wall. So those kind of injuries are also prone to depression. So that's like people trying to deal with the emotional aspect, but in a more physical way. So you would have some bit of injuries here there.
Right. Thank you so much, Henry. And now, what can be done to help somebody who's battling with depression? Because I know that this is a very, very serious situation. And even from the complications that you've just talked about, harming yourself, cutting yourself up, this is something that maybe you can end up now making yourself permanently disabled. And, to a greater extent, we've seen people even kill themselves. But then, what can be done to make sure that there's help given to this particular person that is going into a depression?
Okay, thanks, Rachel. And just to make mention, I think there's something that I didn't indicate, but one of the most important things I think is also the attribution to gender-based violence or aggression. So some people tend to be more aggressive, towards other people simply because of the way they are feeling inside. And when it comes to sort of things that can help an individual, or how you can actually also help another individual, is like, number one, I think it's what we would call self-awareness. So when we talk about self-awareness, I think we're just talking about getting to know more about yourself in terms of what is it that would affect your mood, what is it that would also make you feel happy, you know, what kind of environments are good for you, what kind of environment maybe send you in that sad state. So when we begin to know ourselves in that manner, then it becomes easier to monitor how emotionally I am doing if I'm in a bad environment. So you need to know yourself to say, there are certain small things that can change how I feel. Maybe the company that I keep, I'm able to know to say if I am with Rachel, then I am always a happy person. I am always able to find myself. But maybe if I go, I am with John. I would always end up feeling very low and sad because John is always maybe talking bad about me or telling me how ugly I look and things like that. So you need to have that level of self awareness to the point that you are able to pick environments that are most suitable for you and situations that would help you thrive as a person. So that's number one. Two, I think that would also help out is to sort of know what we would say life skills. There are certain life skills that we need as a person, and sometimes this is where most of us we fail to really cope with life situations because maybe we don't even know how to make better decisions. Now, every day that you live, you have to make decisions, and so therefore it makes decision making becomes an important life skill that you need to know because it's going to guide you in terms of how do you make a better decision and which one would be a bad decision. So decision making simply means that you are able to, look at the situation and make a decision that is not going to put you in a very stressful situation. So that's one of the things that is very, very helpful. Just learning how to make better decisions is an important skill that can also help you in making sure that you don't get into that depressive state. The other aspect of it is conflict management. That would be a life skill. It's a life skill in the sense that every now and then you would anticipate maybe to get into a conflict with a person, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Those are things that you have to deal with. So how do you then get to a point where you are able to manage the conflict within a space that is helpful for you as a person, not to get to have those emotional swings. So that is also very, very important. Aspects of just planning around your life. How do you manage yourself? How do you manage your day? Those are important. And I think if you talk to other people that tell goal setting is an important element because if I'm able to set realistic goals for myself, then I know what I expect. And if I get what I expect, then it will also help me to not get to that level of being disappointed. You know, for instance, I think there are a lot of young people that would say, I want a job, I want a job. So when you keep applying for over a year and you don't get the job, then you have set a goal that you want a job, but you're not getting the job, and people are not opening up the space, then you'll get to feel depressed and say, I've been applying for over a year. So maybe why don't we just start from a more smaller goal, and the more smaller goal being, I just want to be in a work environment, whether I'm going to be an intern or a volunteer, I just want to be in a work environment. So that would be a goal. And instead of you saying, I want to get a job, you just want to get into a work environment as a volunteer, as an intern, that's what I'm going to say. So when you get into that space, you get to feel, oh, so this is what happens. This is how they receive applications. Then from there, you get to say, okay, now I can move. I think I've learned what happens in a workplace. Now I want to get a paid job while I'm in that environment. So that in itself, it's goal setting, but it's also managing your own expectations so that you don't end up getting into that depressive state of having to try out something for a long period of time. So that also is important. There are so many life skills, but I thought I just highlight those elements, and also the support system becomes very, very important. Whenever you have a very difficult situation, it's important to know who is it that you can reach out to, that can support you, that can be, give you that listening ear, that can even provide you with maybe some bit of guidance. So you need to know who is it in your environment that you can listen to or you can talk to and would help you. So it's always important, even beyond friends and family, maybe someone higher than you who's gone through those life situations will be your support system. So I think there's so many things that we can highlight in terms of how we can help ourselves not to get into that depressive state. But I think those three for me would really stand out as things that we can use also to help out people that might be struggling with depression, which is just to get them a bit of help, let them know more about themselves in terms of their emotions, their strength, their weaknesses, the skills or the capacity that they have to deal with the life situations, and then we journey with them as family, as friends.
Yes, absolutely. Very, very important, Henry. Support system. I like just how you've brought that out. Very, very important. And then I know that time is not really with us, but then before I let you go, Henry, there's one very important aspect about mental health or depression that I want to bring to the fore, and that is the fact that a lot of people that are suffering from depression suffer in silence and are afraid to speak out because the society will label them to be mad or even demon possessed. But what would you tell people out there, especially the family and friends of someone who is going through depression? And also, very quick before I can let you go, another question would be, what word of advice would you tell somebody on the need to go out there and seek for the much needed help? Because you see, a lot of people are ashamed to admit that they're slumping into a depressive state, or sometimes it's even hard to actually tell that you apart from the fact that you mentioned you pointed at some of the signs that may be pointing towards depression. A lot of the people would just feel like, what, these days I don't feel like getting up and going for work. These days I'm just extremely tired. No matter how many hours I sleep, I just wake up and I find myself, my body is tense and whatnot. But now, because after hearing what you've said, your word of advice on the need to go out and get the much needed help that everybody needs, because if you are depressed and you are alone, and I know that there's this tendency of always just locking yourself away in the room. You don't want to pick calls, you don't want to socialize, and you feel like the answer will come, but then you find yourself getting deeper and deeper and deeper into that depressive state. So what would you say, number one, on the need for family? And I know you've mentioned, you've touched that touched that a little bit, but I just want you to just tell somebody out there, the family members, the support system, on the need to not label, because these guys have been, a lot of people have been labeled, no, he's demon possessed, no, he's going crazy and all those things. What would you say about that, really?
Okay, so I think to families, friends, colleagues, when it comes to people that are going through mental health challenges and depression in particular, I think one thing that I would want to just put across is that we all are in this one space called life, but our experiences are different. Therefore, it's important to acknowledge the difference in how we can manage the life situations that we go through. So, for any individual that is having a mental health breakdown or a depression or any other condition, it's important to also just acknowledge to say they are slightly a bit different in how they react to the situation. Therefore, they need a bit of extra help. We can all be on the same bus. We can be journeying on the same bus, the same destination, but our experience is going to be totally different. So therefore, it's being different does not mean uh, being weak or being out of this world. It simply means that they need a bit of extra support to get to that space where they can actually thrive like any of us. So it's the support that they need. And coming to, I think, the role of family members and what is it that they can do to seek help. First of all, I think even for individuals that have depression, you should not shun away from finding help, because you can only take the help as a part of becoming a better version of yourself. You cannot get a better version of yourself if you don't get to add certain things to your life. So every time I think you feel like I cannot get help, the first thing that should come to your mind is, I want to become a better version of myself. I want to be better than I am today in how I deal with situations. And you can only become a better version of yourself when you go out there and find the help. So life in itself it's in constant motion. And because it's in constant motion, we always need to constantly check ourselves and update ourselves and upgrade, to the different situations that we might face in life. So the call for help should not be because I am sick, but it should be because I want to become better than I am today. So if I am sleeping more, I want to become more active. So I need to find where it is that I can get that empowerment to sort of become a better version of myself. So I think for me, that would be the key message for anyone, even just those of us that are still struggling but we haven't accepted. It's okay, you can become a better version of yourself. And to become a better version of yourself, you need to find that counselor, you need to find someone else who can help you, to upgrade your skills, to upgrade yourself, and to learn more about yourself and what you can do.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Henry. Thank you for, coming out here and just raising awareness on this very, very difficult subject. A lot of us are going through depression. A lot of people, because of life events, particularly now that we're deep in the third wave of the COVID-19. The COVID-19 has brought with it devastating effects on a lot of people. People have lost their jobs, people have lost their loved ones, people have been sick, and there's been a lot of stuff going on in people's lives. And so this has led to a lot of people out there getting depressed and going through various emotional challenges. And so thank you so much for coming through this evening. And I just want to say thank you so much to every one of you that tuned into KBN TV. Thank you so much for tuning into Healthy Living. This has been Rachel Mumba. Join me again next week, same time, as I will be bringing to you another exciting topic that concerns our health. Good night and God bless. Your health is your wealth. And because... Huh? Okay.